Chapter 19. Trust no one. Matt's heart felt as if it would leap out of his chest when Moses returned from the alley. "We've got to get out of here," Moses struggled to speak as he doubled over in pain. Matt could tell that Moses's wound had worsened. "I just need to rest here a moment," Moses said, sinking down onto a step. He dropped his head back and closed his eyes. His face was ghostly white. Matt stared at Moses as his chest rose and fell, and he panicked when he realized that the old man might die right then and there. "We have to get to Bell's Tavern now," Moses wheezed, struggling to his feet with a grimace. "I had hoped to walk, but that's impossible. We'll need to get a coach." They reached the tavern just as a boy was lighting the coach's lamps to ready it for departure. The sun was sinking fast behind a tall brick bell tower. The coach was full as Matt and Moses squeezed in. It had 8 passengers, 4 to a seat, and 1 smelly wet dog that lay on the floor by their feet. The ride across town was slow and bumpy. Moses sat mute, his face drained of color and grim with pain. Matt looked out the window as they bumped along the narrow cobblestone streets. He had a sinking feeling that he was going further and further away from everyone he knew and would never see them again. A sharp wind rattled the coach doors and windows and whistled its way into the cab. The stink from the dog and the moldy straw on the cab's floor was overpowering. When one of the passengers asked Moses his occupation, the old man quickly pulled himself together and mentioned the school he planned to open for orphans in the city. Matt marveled at the calm with which Moses lied. There was no hint of pain or hesitation catching his voice. There couldn't be, for their lives depended upon it. The dog began to bark hysterically as the coach lurched to a sudden stop. From the window, Matt watched the redcoats on horseback surrounding the coach. He shrank back at the sight of a young British officer on his horse, just inches away from him. The soldier's brass buckles and buttons gleamed against his brushed red coat. He rode so close to them, Matt could almost have reached out and touched him. "What the devil do these redcoats want with us?" a passenger grumbled, reaching for his pistol beneath his greatcoat. "Nay, show them no arms," Moses warned. "They do not mean to overtake us." "How can you be so certain?" the passenger asked. "They would have done it by now. They only mean to get around us," Moses said. His eyes darted from one window to the other, and no sooner had he said it than the soldiers rode out in front of the coach and disappeared down a hill. Matt sank back into his seat, his heart once again racing. He sat on his hands to keep them from trembling. "Too bad. I would have enjoyed putting a bullet into one of His Majesty's men," the passenger muttered, tucking his pistol back under his coat. Moses said nothing. He closed his eyes until the coach finally came to a stop. 3 passengers departed. 2 new passengers came aboard. The coachman cracked his bull-hide whip, and the horses broke into a canter. As the coach lurched along, Matt noticed a dark mole on the new passenger's hand beside him. It was an odd-looking mole, in the shape of a perfect little bell. The coach swerved sharply to the right, and the man's leather bag fell open. Paper scattered all over the floor, mostly charcoal drawings of landscapes. The man and his friend beside him rushed to pick them up. Matt reached down to help. He picked up a stretch of a crossroads and a bridge. "Hey-ho! What are you about?" one of the men shouted, pulling the paper so violently from Matt's hands that it ripped in two. "I was just trying to help," Matt said, but the passenger scowled with an anxious look in his eyes. "Do you draw for your pleasure, young sir?" another passenger asked, but the other young man was quick to answer for his friend. "Nay, sir, he draws for coin. My comrade and I are surveyors." He smiled a tight smile and turned to look at Matt. "So, lad, are you traveling on your own?" Matt hesitated. "I am with my teacher, Master Hastings," he lied. He stole a look at Moses, but the old spy's face remained unmoved. "What school in the city do you attend?" the man persisted. "'Tis a new school for orphans," Moses quickly answered for him. Matt could feel the man looking him over. "Those are most unusual shoes you wear, boy," he noted. "What shoemaker cobbled such strange creations?" Matt's eyes darted to his sneakers. My mother bought them for me." "I thought you said your school was for orphans," the man said, giving Moses a suspicious look. Once again, Matt's heart raced so fast he thought it would burst, when he realized the blunder he had made. I, he stuttered. "He is newly orphaned," Moses quickly intervened. "Tragic loss. Both parents taken in a fire. The memories are still fresh." This lie, told so swiftly, so smoothly, instantly silenced the man. But as Matt looked at Moses, he saw a red stain coming through the side of his coat. Whoa! The coachman suddenly shouted, pulling on the reins and bringing the coach to an abrupt halt. The passengers turned their attention to gathering up their belongings. Matt caught Moses's gaze and nodded to the stain on his coat. Moses quickly covered it with his bag. "Bell's Tavern," the coachman called. He opened the cab door. "And for those of you journeying on, we'll be stopping here to water the horses. The innkeeper's wife bakes a fine pigeon pie, and the house ale is hearty." The dark-haired surveyor turned to Matt. "Well, lad, here is where we part ways. Have a care as you travel through the city." "Aye, with the redcoats in town, there's no telling where you'll run into a brigade," his friend added. "And here is a guinea towards some books for that new school of yours." He placed a coin in Matt's hands. They were friendly enough, Matt said, as the surveyors headed for the tavern. Moses took the coin from his hand. "They are English and probably spies," he said, following the two men's every step with his eyes. "Spies!" Matt exclaimed. "But they warned us against the redcoats, and they said they were surveyors." "And I said you were an orphan," Moses reminded him. "In these times you can trust no one. I would stake my life that those two are English gentry. Their accents and their clean boots give them away." "But they seem so nice," Matt said. "Nice enough to sketch every crossroads and bridge from Boston to Concord on General Howe's orders, I'll wager," Moses said with a groan. "And nice enough to hand us over to a firing squad should they learn what we are about." He grabbed Matt's arm with one hand, his fingernails digging through Matt's shirt. "This is no game we play at, Matthew. There is nothing nice about war. It feeds on lies and treachery. It is about killing or being killed. You saw what they did to my brother. Unless you want the same thing to happen to you, trust no one. Do you hear me? Trust no one." Chapter 20. A Brother Comes to Call. Silently, Matt followed behind Moses, his eyes darting about, watching for any movement, his ears pricking up at the slightest sound. With one of their soldiers dead, surely the redcoats must be hunting throughout the city for his killer. Matt couldn't stop the nightmare that was forming in his mind. He pictured himself on a cart beside Moses, their lifeless bodies hanging from meat hooks with signs saying "traitor" dangling from their necks. "Can't we go back to the mill now?" Matt pleaded as Moses moaned and bent over in agony. "Wouldn't it be safer for you to rest there?" "We've a mission to accomplish now," Moses told him. His voice was so weak, Matt hardly recognized it. "We cannot return until we do. But I know someone who lives close by." They turned down a quiet street lined with houses, and Moses leaned on Matt's shoulder as he walked. Most of the windows were dark or shuttered tight. Moses moved slowly, groaning now with every step. "It's that brick house across the street," he panted. He slowed to a stop and grabbed onto a hitching post. "I just need to rest." "Here, lean on me," Matt told him. "I'll help you." They managed to get across the street and up the brick steps to the house's front door. Moses pointed to the brass door knocker, and Matt reached up and rapped it against the door. Moments later, a young servant boy appeared. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked, straightening the wig that sat crooked on his head. "Tell your mistress that her brother has come to call," Moses said, struggling to get the words out. The boy stared at Moses, then backed up and disappeared for a long while. "You're to follow me," he said when he finally returned, and he led the way up 3 flights of stairs. Matt followed behind, with Moses leaning heavily on his arm. Once they had reached an attic bedroom, Moses sank down onto a bed in a corner of the room. "I'll be back with some wood to make up your fire," the young servant told them, setting a candle on the table and hurrying out the door. Then, to Matt's amazement, he saw Moses pull off his long beard and remove his hat and the gray wig under it, to reveal a head of thick blonde hair. He looked very much like his brother Harry. "The wrinkles have been put on with paste," Moses admitted. "Disguise is part and parcel of the shady business I am in." Matt stared in stunned silence as Moses peeled away his mask. "You're not really an old man," exclaimed Matt. "Old enough at 25 to have seen more blood spilled in the name of the crown than I can stomach," the young spy said. "And your name, is it really Moses?" "Nay. God's not seen fit to come down from his heaven with tablets to guide me through this miserable world of ours. For I am only a Thomas Jameson, not a Moses at all." As Matt looked at Thomas's face in the candlelight, he saw that the young spy's eyes had closed and rivulets of sweat covered his forehead. Even more frightening, the bed's white quilt was now stained red with his blood. The door opened slowly, and a woman in a long satin dress and a tall white wig appeared. "Thomas, why have you come?" she asked stiffly. Thomas opened his eyes. "Martha, "I know it has been too long," he began. "Too long," she bristled. "Too long? Your nieces still do not understand why you've not visited them these past 12 months. Did you even know you had a nephew born last summer?" "I did not know," Thomas admitted. "No, how could you?" she said, her lip trembling. "Because you and Harry are like strangers to me now." Thomas let out a sad sigh. "Martha, what divides us?" "Will always divide us," she cut him off. "For my loyalties must be with my husband and my king." I need your help," he panted. It was then that she stepped inside and saw the blood on the blanket. "Oh, Thomas, you are hurt!" she cried, flying to his side. He struggled to speak. "It is only a scratch compared to what they did to our Harry." His sister clutched the white lace shawl that was knotted at her chest. "What about Harry?" she whispered. "Tell me, brother, what has happened to our Harry?" But Thomas's head dropped to his chest as he lost consciousness. "Wait here with him," the woman ordered Matt. "Dr. Brenner is still in the house. I will fetch him right away." She hurried out of the room and quickly returned with the doctor at her side. He went directly to Thomas, and after several minutes he shot Matt a suspicious look. "How did he come by this wound?" the doctor demanded. "'Twas an accident," Thomas's sister told him before Matt could answer. "An accident, you say?" the doctor repeated with a suspicious glint in his eye. "I will need water and bandages." The woman rushed back out of the room. "Now tell me the truth, boy," the doctor said, turning to Matt. "Did this accident have something to do with a British soldier's bayonet?" Matt hesitated, not knowing how to answer. "There was a fight," he said finally. The doctor shook his head and continued his work. Thomas's sister returned to the room with a basin of water and some strips of cloth. "Will he live?" she asked anxiously. "'Twill be a miracle," the doctor said. "He appears to have lost a great deal of blood." "God help him," the woman murmured. "Will you return in the morning to check on him and my daughter?" The doctor's face clouded. "I am afraid, Mistress Hewson, I can no longer offer you my services. You can try fetching old Mistress Coop. She has a house near Oliver's Dock." "But she is no doctor!" Mistress Hewson exclaimed. Dr. Brenner shrugged. "The old woman keeps leeches and can probably be persuaded to continue your daughter's bleeding in return for some meat or flour." "But you must come back," begged Mistress Hewson. "'Tis only my friendship for you and your family that keeps me from reporting this matter to the guards," the doctor told her. "Your brother's loyalties are well known in the city. If you know what is good for you, you'll get him out of your house as soon as you can." With that, he closed his bag briskly and hurried out the door. The woman turned to Matt. He could see her dark eyes full of worry. "What did Thomas mean about something happening to our brother Harry?" she asked. "If you know, I implore you to tell me." Matt hesitated. How could he tell her of the ghastly sight he'd seen? "Please," she begged, putting her hand on his. "Please tell me, is he alive?" Matt shook his head. She clutched her chest and sank down onto the bed as if she'd been struck in the heart. "Not Harry! Not my little brother! Not Harry! Not Harry!" Just then another man walked into the room. He took one look at Thomas, who was still unconscious on the bed. "Good Lord, what is he doing here?" the man exclaimed. "Oh, husband, he is wounded," his wife told him. "And Harry is dead," she broke down wailing as her husband took her into his arms. "Harry was so young," she cried, "not even 20. Her husband's face darkened. "Young, perhaps, but he made a choice." "He was too young to choose," she cried, breaking free of him. She took a rag from the basin and gently washed the sweat from Thomas's forehead. Meanwhile, her husband looked at Matt, as if suddenly noticing him for the first time. "And who might you be?" "I'm Matthew Carleton," Matt told him. "Does your mother know where you are, lad? And the dangerous business you are about?" "No, sir," Matt said truthfully. "I didn't want to come here. I didn't even want to leave home," he blurted out. "I just need to find—" "How old are you, son?" the man interrupted. "I'm 10 years old," answered Matt. The man's kind face contorted with anger. "Enough!" he cried. "I've had enough of this madness. Our colonies are ripped apart. Our families divided. Young boys are sent on missions meant for men. For what? For tax on a cup of tea?" His wife stroked Thomas's forehead and sobbed. "Oh, Thomas, what is to become of you?" "He has to leave," her husband said, regaining his composure. "They must both leave." "But he is wounded, and he is my brother," his wife pleaded. He is a rebel and a traitor, her husband exploded once more. If we harbor a traitor, they will hang us alongside of him. Think of our children, Martha. We cannot risk it. We dare not for their sake. 'Tis bad enough the doctor has seen him. God willing, he'll keep our secret. But William, she begged. You must leave this matter to me, he said, guiding her to the door. Go now. We have enough to worry about with the pox in our home and our daughter so ill. Your place is with the children. Do not tell Mercy or the rest of the girls. No one is to know he is here. We will sort this out in the morning. Once his wife had gone, the man turned back to Matt. You're not to leave this room, he ordered. He took a wrought iron key from a hook on the wall. I am locking you in. No one is to know you are even in this house. Do you understand? Not a soul is to know you are here.